Good afternoon to you all, and welcome to the second edition of Arash Unfiltered. I'm coming to you live from Washington, D.C., from our nation's capital, from the Senate Russell building. While I'm talking to you going live, the European Champions League is on, and it's difficult to just be focused on one topic. Friends and colleagues are all watching football, and if you are like us, a football fanatic, you just want to follow on all the scores and who's scoring and who's not. My friend Bruno is actually watching Madrid versus Munich at the corner of my eye. He's been kind enough to keep it on. Sometimes I'm looking there, sometimes I'm looking at you. I try to keep the focus. And to my right, if I want to show you in that corner, Senator John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, he's talking to the press right now. So, at the time, it's been only a few days since the Congress came back from, especially the Senate came back from recess. There was an attempt, there's still an attempt ongoing, I think, for war powers resolution. Senators, Democratic senators have introduced this war powers resolution to limit the president's power to declare war, or basically limit president's authority for kinetic action. It is doomed to fail. Democrats have tried it many times before. It has failed before. It's going to fail right now as well. Today, I expect it to fail once again. Democrats, they don't have any strategy against Trump. They only have hopes. They only have hopes that his administration falls apart by itself. That's not a hope, is not a strategy. You need to have something tangible. You need to have a way to govern. Trump is not going to disappear. Trump is here to stay. If you think Trump is a phase, you're mistaken. It's been going on for more than a decade now, and he has tremendous support in parts of the country that is not visible to Washington, D.C. And that's why the mainstream media always fails to see that. They always believe, they always start like with a lot of criticism. They think he's cornered. They think he doesn't have a way out. And suddenly he finds one. And once he does, you know, they've just been trying to sow hopes and wishes. Hope and wish is not a strategy. So what is happening in US Congress, especially on the Senate side, as far as the war with Iran goes? As you know, my name is Arash. I'm an Iranian-American reporter. I've reported from inside Iran. I've been a reporter in Washington, D.C. for 18 years, mostly for Farsi-speaking outlets, mostly. This is my first serious attempt to cover English. How am I doing? Rate me. If you see the good people of Iran, they're on the chat. I see people's chat popping up. If you see most Iranians here, Iranian-Americans, mainly Iranians from all over the world, they're very friendly, try to make new friends. If you're not from Iran, say hello to them, find friends. Sima is very nice, Maya is very nice, they're all very nice people. If you see them speaking in a different alphabet that looks strange to you, that's not Arabic. No, that's not Arabic. That's Farsi, that's Persian. Don't call it Arabic at all. And it's fine, it's okay. You can have Google translate it for you. They're friendly. They don't mean evil. They mean good. They mean good. They're just saying nice things. Very supportive. So this is my first attempt to bring about my support from the Iranian community diaspora to my English channel. And they've always been asking me, and I've been in Congress for quite some time now. People in Iran, mostly Americans, Iranian-Americans, are very curious about the Senate and the composition of Senate. Who's who in the Senate? How many senators do we have? What do they do? Are the senators equal in terms of power and what they do? Especially Iranian Americans who are hoping to put together a coalition against the Islamic regime in Iran. And maybe, create some sort of organizations, organize themselves into a voting bloc. We don't have an Iranian voting bloc in America, although it's been said that there's nearly 3 million Iranian Americans right now, third generation, second generation, many of them born here, of course, but their roots are Iranian. But they have no voting bloc. So this is the first time that I'm trying to educate you about who's who in the Senate. For those of you who want to continue coming here, organizing Iranians, organizing thoughts, organizing votes, this segment is made for you. So watch intently. So yesterday I had a chance to talk to a couple of senators, GOP senators, Republicans. Why do they call them GOP? In the 1900s, it was known as the Grand Old Party, Grand Old OL, Grand Old Party. And so the nickname for the Republicans is GOP. I talked to Senator Rick Scott from Florida. Now, who's Rick Scott? Now, Senator Rick Scott, well, if you don't know much about him, let's start with his worth. How much is he worth? This is Senator Rick Scott. He was speaking in CPAC a few weeks ago. I was there actually in CPAC. He spoke right before Prince Reza Pahlavi. Before Pahlavi's speech, Rick Scott came up. Who is he? Well, Rick Scott has been pretty much consistently among the top 10 richest members of US Congress. His worth, it has been estimated that he's worth somewhere around $400 to $500 million. Senator Rick Scott used to be the governor of Florida for a while. He has good relationship with President Trump. Hawkish, very hawkish, pro-America, pro-West, pro-capitalism. Now, for most Americans, for most people who look out from outside, these senators they're known, these senators, based on the decisions that they make, their votes, their ideology. There's very little information about their background, where they come from. Why does the guy think the way he thinks? Why does Rick Scott think the way he thinks? Why is he so pro-America? Why is he so pro-growth? Why is he so pro-capitalism? Why is he so much anti-communism, anti-socialism, and very vocal against the Islamic regime in Iran, against the regime in Cuba? Why is that? And the reason, partly, you can explain it based on his success in the United States. So according to Senator himself, he published an article a while ago on his own website. He said, I grew up in subsidized housing. This is, I think, yes, it is. I grew up in subsidized housing. That's Senator Rick Scott explaining about his family, telling a story about how his family grew up in a complex in Florida that was subsidized by the federal government, how difficult it was for them to afford food and medicine, how challenging life was to him when he was little, when he was a teenager, how early he got his first job. I think he got his first job when he was 14 or 15. Senator Rick Scott did. And then little by little, he started building and building and building, and then he entered healthcare business, and then he started teaming up with one company and then another one, and then one good investment led to another, one thing led to another, and now he's standing on the top of an empire which is worth nearly $500 million. Why wouldn't a guy like Rick Scott be so pro-capitalism? Why wouldn't he be so pro-capitalism when capitalism has worked for him so well? Where capitalism has served him so well, where capitalism has helped him, lifted him up from poverty all the way to be a U.S. senator, a guy who was so poor when he was a teenager. He built his life throughout decades and decades. So why wouldn't he be so pro-Republican, pro-growth, pro-capitalism, anti-communism, anti-socialism? If you read Senator's life story, makes a lot of sense for someone like him to be pro-capitalism. So what is his stance on the Islamic Republic, and why is Rick Scott important for Iranians? Powerful senator from Florida. He's a member, he used to be a member of the Judiciary Committee, used to be a member on the Banking Committee. Very powerful two committees that he's a part of. He ran to become Senate Majority Leader, although he lost. That's quite a status. He's someone that when he speaks, a big chunk of MAGA Republicans listen to, a big chunk of Floridians listen to. Mr. Trump listens to him. He's had very little drama because he's very rich, because he's $500 million worth. He's not in anyone's pocket, very much like Trump. He says he speaks his mind freely. He's not a part of traditional mainstream Republicans. They try to keep him on the fringe. He's very well spoken, a person that he's being able to articulate his thoughts very clearly, especially regarding the Islamic Republic. So yesterday, I had a chance to speak to Senator about Iran, about the blockade, about what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. And he talked to Arash Unfiltered about all of that, and also about Shahzadeh Reza Pahlavi. So please, without further ado, listen to what Senator Rick Scott told me.
Blockade of Strait of Hormuz that took effect yesterday. What do you know about the blockade? Do you know if it's complete? There's been rumors about Chinese shipping sneaking in and out.
Well, everything I know so far, it's complete. And it should be complete. And you can see that's why all the ships are lined up in the Gulf of America now, coming to get oil from America. So I think Trump's doing the right thing. Iran needs to come to the table. We need to get all the enriched uranium out of Iran. They can never, ever, ever have a nuclear weapon. They want to destroy us. They want to destroy our allies. And by the way, they've been killing Americans for 47 years. So they want to kill us.
So people in Iran are saying President Trump took out the former Iranian leader, took out some capabilities of the IRGC, but didn't kill them. And now they are battered, they're more angry, they're more radicalized, and they're afraid that President Trump is going to leave Iranian people to this new radicalized regime. What do you have to say about that?
Well, first off, I don't know how that could be any more radical than the Ayatollah was. Killed thousands of people in January. So I don't know how you could be any worse than that. He's going to kill hundreds of thousands of people. So I'm not sure how it can be any worse. I think, look at this president. He's not an appeaser. He knows what he has to do. He's protecting American lives. He's given the people of Iran an opportunity. I hope it all works. It's going to work in some way. I would never bet against Trump.
Lastly, Prince Reza Pahlavi is touring Europe right now. He was in Sweden 2 days ago. He met with the Swedish royal family and also the parliament. He's going around in European countries meeting with parliamentarians. What do you think of him, of Prince Reza Pahlavi, and his operation inside Iran and among the diaspora?
I don't know him, but I'm very appreciative that anybody that's trying to get freedom and democracy and opportunity for everybody in Iran.
Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Appreciate it. Been rumors about Chinese shipping sneaking in and out.
Well,
you might think that when you heard the senator, he says, talking about the blockade, he believes that the blockade is complete. But I asked him about the Chinese ships going in and out. He actually explained later that most of the information that he's received show that the Chinese ships, tankers that have been passing through the Strait of Hormuz were carrying Iraqi oil. So they're not the part of the blockade. That's why the U.S. military, the U.S. Navy has allowed those Chinese ships to pass through. That's what the senator told me. Then talking about the Iranian people, and they're worried. A lot of Iranians inside the country also talk to me, and they're all worried that the United States might leave this mission incomplete, that the United States might come to an agreement with the Iranian regime and then leave the Iranian people to the mercy of the new radicalized government in the Islamic Republic. So you heard Senator debunk those rumors. He said he thinks it's not smart to bet against Trump. Trump is not an appeaser. He's right. Trump is not an appeaser. He's never appeased the Islamic Republic. So as a result, he's confident that President Trump is going to finish the job. This is another important thing that Senator mentioned to me. And lastly, when I asked him about Prince Reza Pahlavi, here's my sense for you. And you heard the senator who said, I don't know him. Well, of course, he knows him. He knows him. He knows who Reza Pahlavi is. But they've never met. Well, that's what Senator meant. And there is also this concern that if Republicans gather around or stand behind Prince Reza Pahlavi, it's going to backfire. You know, the Republicans and also the White House has been very cautious when it comes to Iran and its next leader, who should be leading Iran next. They've been very, very cautious. And I think Senator took the same line from President Trump. Said he looks like a nice guy. He looks like someone who is trying to liberate Iranian people, to bring democracy into Iran. That's what matters most. So that's the thing about Rick Scott and how important he is in the US Senate, especially for Iranians who are against the Islamic Republic. Remember his name. Remember Rick Scott. You guys who live in Florida, there are a bunch of Iranian-Americans in Florida. Last time I went down, thousands of Iranians in Miami, in Fort Lauderdale came to welcome me. You know, we went on a protest. Very kind, very nice Iranians in Florida. This is your senator. This is someone that you should be backing. This is someone that you should be thanking for his support. And he's very important. If we want to deal a bigger blow to the Islamic regime in Iran, we all need to know senators like Rick Scott, who are tirelessly working against the regime in Iran, who are putting their blessing, their support behind President Trump in order to batter the regime in Iran. So number two of these senators is actually another senator from Republican Party, from GOP, Senator John Hoeven of North Dakota. I talked to Senator Hoeven yesterday, and Senator Hoeven, well, a few things about him. He's also very successful financially. He has had a very great resume as the governor of North Dakota. Also, he's been a senator, I think, since 2016. I might be wrong on that. But it's been like 10, 12 years that he's been in U.S. Senate. Before that, he was the governor of the state of North Dakota. His career is in banking and finance, very successful career. I think he's worth, according to information that I dug in, as you can see, he's worth somewhere between $50 to $60 million. Not as rich as Rick Scott, but nonetheless very successful. He is one of those people who knows a lot about how the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, circumvents the sanctions, the illicit oil sales, the activities of the Islamic Republic in order to fund terrorism, fundings that go to Hezbollah, fundings that go to Hamas, fundings that go to Islamic Jihad, to Houthis, to all these terrorist organizations that are funded by essentially by Iranian people's money through the Islamic Republic. Senator John Hoeven is one of those people who's been fighting that. He's been on the forefront of it. He used to be on the banking committee during the last Senate. Very well versed, very vocal against the regime in Iran again, never shies away from talking to reporters, very kind. He's very kind and nice. sometimes I've seen him. I've seen Senator giving right to reporters. He drives his own car. Doesn't go around with bodyguards. Very approachable person. I've talked to him many times, and this time I was trying to figure out what the next steps are going to be. I've talked to him a month ago. His idea was, since the Islamic regime has been killing a lot of Americans, they have the blood of Americans on their hands, they have the blood of their own people on their hands, they have the blood of the people of the region on their hands. And that's why the United States should go to war with the regime in Iran. That was his thoughts last time that I talked to him. This time, I wanted to know more about the blockade and also how effective that blockade would be, and also the worries of Iranian people. So we had a good conversation, a back and forth for quite a few minutes. Listen to our exchange, my conversation with Senator John Hoeven yesterday.
It has taken effect. It's been almost 24 years. There are reports that some of the Chinese ships, tankers, have been sneaking in and out. What do you know about the blockade?
So I was asked about that earlier today. And remember, the blockade is for any ship that leaves or goes to a port in Iran. Now, there are other countries in the Gulf. So if there's going to a different country, then those ships, I believe, will be able to pass unless there's other extenuating circumstances. So the key is the blockade is to make sure that ships that are going to Iran or coming from Iran are interdicted and stopped. And that's what's going to put pressure on Iran. As you see, they're already talking about coming back to the table. But the only thing that Iranians respond to, the regime now, not the people. The people, of course, I believe, want to see this regime ended. But the regime, the only thing they respond to is force. And that's why it's so important that we continue to apply pressure until we achieve our objectives.
Some Iranians have been telling me that they're afraid that United States abandoned its mission incomplete. They're saying the former supreme leader is dead. Now there is a more radicalized version of Islamic Republic, and they're hoping that the Trump administration does not abandon them with a more radicalized version of the Islamic Republic. What do you say to that?
I'd say that what you've seen from President Trump is the approach of peace through strength. And he recognizes that the Iranian regime only responds to strength. That's why you saw the military action. That's why you're seeing the blockade. And the objectives remain making sure that Iran does not have a nuclear program, that we end their ballistic missile capability, and we make sure that they don't have these one-way drones, and that there's freedom of navigation in the Strait of Hormuz. And I think you're seeing that the Trump administration and our incredible military will continue to apply pressure to Iran until the corrupt regime in Iran meets those requirements.
And lastly, the Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, the son of former Shah of Iran, is touring Europe right now. He met with parliamentarians in Sweden. He met with parliamentarians in Britain. What do you know of him? What do you think of him? And the support of Iranian people behind Reza Pahlavi?
Well, what I do know is that he's working along with others to try to find a way for the people of Iran to get a different governance in there, one that actually works for them. The corrupt regime in Iran right now kills and oppresses their own people. And the Iranian people need and deserve a government that actually works for them and helps them, not the regime they have.
Thank you.
Yeah, you heard the senator. If he believes that the regime in Iran does not represent its people, you notice how much emphasis he put into make the distinction between the Iranian people, the great people of Iran, and the regime in Iran. And that's what it's all about, guys. This is a war against the regime in Iran, not against the people of Iran. And I think Republicans, especially in the Senate, have been doing an outstanding job to basically support President Trump in this effort. Now, on the Democratic side, I don't see that much support, but there's also dissent. There are senators like Senator Fetterman, who's been putting his whole, capital, political capital behind it. He's been very vocal against the regime. He's been very supportive of the administration, going against the regime of mullahs, but for Senator John Hoeven, who has been dealing with the Islamic regime day in, day out here at the US Senate with all these negative reporting coming out of the field. All these different US allies, when they come visit senators here, the only thing that they have to say about the regime in Iran is only negative stuff. What a negative role the regime in Iran is playing in their countries, how much they're meddling in their countries, how much money they're spending on terrorism. That's all they've been hearing for the past, 47 years? And the fact that for people like Senator John Hoeven, still the great people of Iran have made such a good impression on him, on people like him, that after 47 years, he still makes this distinction. He knows very well that the Iranian people and the regime in Iran are two separate things. The regime in Iran does not represent its own people. I think that's the valuable thing. And he stands out. Most Republicans know that. Today, Democrats tried to, as I mentioned, to try to pass the War Powers Resolution. They failed again. There's been rumblings in the Democrat Party for the past few days about one of their lawmakers, especially on the House side, Eric Swalwell, who's always been anti-Trump. Eric Swalwell has been one of those lawmakers who's been controversial, to say the least, from California. He's always opposed Trump for, as far as I know, on every issue, on every policy. Not only he's been opposing President Trump, he's been belittling his supporters. He's been going after his family, Trump's family. Eric Swalwell was for a long time the darling of Democrat Party, until a few weeks ago when it turned out that Eric Swalwell allegedly has raped women, and those women have started coming forward. And now yesterday, Eric Swalwell, after his initial reaction of denial, first he denied everything, then he said, oh, he apologized, and then he had to resign. So the clerk in the House read his resignation yesterday. And a lot of reporters asked questions from the ranks and file in the Democrat Party. How come you supported Eric Swalwell for such a long time? Didn't you know? Didn't you know about him? Didn't you know about all these allegations? And the answer from most members of Congress, including Nancy Pelosi, was no, we had no idea. We had no clue. We didn't know. We didn't know this guy was raping women. We didn't know he was a bad person. We didn't know. We didn't know. But when he was the attack dog, when Eric Swalwell was the attack dog against the president of the United States, you all supported him. Now this, as an Iranian-American, has precedent in the Democrat Party. For them to support people, support the kind of people that we call criminals in the United States, okay? Put their political capital behind criminals. We go after political opponents. Now, if you look at the Islamic Revolution in Iran, like a lot of people in the Islamic Revolution, the initial cabinet of the Islamic Republic in Iran, the first cabinet, more than half of them were Western educated. UC Berkeley, Rutgers, from all the way from New York, all the way from California. Most of them were, and still are, US educated. Many of them were Democrats. Many of them convinced Democrats to pressure the Shah of Iran, to write articles against the Shah of Iran, like Ibrahim Yazdi, whose son, Hanif Yazdi, is the deputy of Zoran Mamdani in New York now. That's the irony. The irony is that many of these people who Democrats say, oh, we didn't know this guy was a sexual abuser. We didn't know this guy was a terrorist. We had no clue. We had no idea. They've played this before. I don't think at this point it's going to work for them. Because for a long time, like I said, people like Eric Swalwell stood against Trump and the will of people. And one of the things was that it was very difficult to remove him because he comes from a district in California that is predominantly Democrat. But now that he has resigned, I hope the next representative for that great state of California from that district, that I hope they choose a more sane person, someone who thinks, who can think and put his money where his mouth is, put his mouth where his country's interests are. To look at America as a whole, not a Democrat America, Republican America. The experience with people like Eric Swalwell shows that Democrats are so desperate. They're so desperate to oppose Trump that they would team up with anyone, even criminals, if they have to. If they have to, they will team up with criminals. And now their director is showing you the picture of Hanif Yazdi on top right. That's Hanif Yazdi. Look how similar he looks like. He's pretty much very similar to his father, Ibrahim Yazdi, who was the first foreign minister of Islamic Republic. He was the one who contributed to several fake news stories, which was published on New York Times and Washington Post at the time against Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi. The article that New York Times was published was insisting that it was true, and it turned out that they completely got all the information from Hanif Yazdi's father, Ibrahim, and Abul Hassan Bani Sadr. And now this guy, Hanif Yazdi, is the deputy for Zoran Mamdani in New York. The irony of history. Well, thank you so much again for joining us on the second edition of Arash Unfiltered. Time flies, man. Time flies. Thank you so much for being with us. We're gonna make it a tradition to come back each and every week. I appreciate your time, your support, your comments. Please feel free to leave comments. If there's a topic that you want us to cover, let me know in the comments. You know, I go through my comments and I try to respond to them as much as I can. Thank you so much again, and I hope to see you again here from Washington, D.C. I say adieu, Javid Shah, Payande Iran.